Change money? Dollars, good prices. Change money? Dollar, Deutsche Mark, good prices. Hello, comrades. Today I'll tell you an incredible story of American dollars in the Eastern Bloc and Soviet Union. It was a forbidden currency, but at the same time there were official shops that offered capitalist goods, from Coca-Cola and chewing gum with Donald Duck up to Western cars for those forbidden dollars. Crazy, right? Like the whole communism. Follow me, I'll tell you more. After World War II ended, the world was divided by so-called Iron Curtain into imperialist West with the USA in charge and the Red Eastern Bloc with cunning Ruskies on top. While ideologies were irreconcilable, both sides had one thing in common: American dollar. Believe it or not, communism couldn't exist without American dollar. You may ask, why? I will not bore you to death with economy, statistics and history. In simple terms, communist countries had planned economy, which means that prices of products people could buy were ordered, planned by a government. In capitalism, a price of, for example, clothes was a sum of prices of materials, threads, working hours, shipping, storage, etc. In the Eastern Bloc, industry was state-owned, and no matter the production cost, the price of the final product was already planned. That led to nearly constant shortages of just about everything in shops, and that further led to a rationizing system. This artificially propelled economy caused that the Eastern Bloc currencies were not accepted outside their own circle, and that could mean goodbye Lenin very quickly. However, the Eastern Bloc had a lot to offer to the world. Atom, armaments, natural resources, hell, even blood of East Germany citizens, advertised as AIDS-free in the 80s. Yes, comrades, communists would bleed you dry for a handful of dollars, but I tell you more about it in the future. Some of those deals were made sometimes with the US approval, sometimes breaking the embargo, especially when dealing arms was the case. And all that provided dollars for communists to buy products to fuel their planned economy. Like yin-yang, East couldn't exist without West. The Eastern Bloc constant need for Western currencies, mostly US dollar, caused that owning those currencies by its citizens was forbidden, and like it happened in 1961, could get you executed. After that incident, Soviets figured out that executions and prison would not convince people to give them Western currencies. Clever Soviets tried, successfully, a different approach to milk tourists and their own citizens for foreign currencies. Instead of a stick, they used a carrot. Dollars, Deutsche Marks, francs, and so on were either sent by families living abroad, either carefully hidden in tea boxes or inside oranges, so no postal officer would notice them, or via legal transfers. Some citizens, like for example sailors, also earned in Western currencies. That is why, since the early 1960s, special state-owned shops started popping up throughout the Eastern Bloc, offering its people Western goods that could only be bought with hard currencies, mostly US dollars. It was Soviet Berioshka, Polish Pewex and Baltona, Czechoslovakian Tuzex, East German Intershop, Romanian Comturist or Bulgarian Korekom, and so on. It was what was called an internal export. Some goods obtained from rotten West in exchange for natural resources were sold there. And now brace yourself! While those hard currency shop shelves were stocked with Western luxury food, clothes, perfumes, sweets, toys, electronics, remember, you could even order a car there. The shelves of regular stores were empty, as rationing system not always worked. Fun fact! For example, in the Polish People's Republic, there was the grotesque abundance of vinegar, a liquid that will later prove useful against tear gas when people start to rise against the communists. The mechanism of those hard currency shops was quite complicated, especially for those who came to contact with the communist states for the first time. Communist states ran on two currencies simultaneously, one national and one Western, rebranded to look like national. I know it's hard to comprehend, but easy, I'll explain it to you. Let's take US dollars. In Poland, they even printed their own US dollars called bons, checks. Such bond was one-to-one equivalent of a US dollar. Polish State Bank converted real US dollars into those bonds and paid them to those who were to receive payment in real dollars, foreign contractors, sailors, or to those who were to receive a money transfer from a family that was outside the Eastern Bloc. Bonds or other substitutes were used only in the state boundaries. In different Eastern Bloc countries, they had different names, and they had no value outside the given country. The point is, the Communist Bank would never give you a real US dollar if you received a money transfer in any hard currency. Crazy, right? You could exchange dollars for bonds or zloty, a Polish currency till this day, but never other way round. And since regular shops were basically empty or offered low-quality products, those shops like Pewex squeezed you for those dollars with a promise of luxury. Like with casinos, the house always wins. Sooner or later, the communists would have those dollars. So, those lucky ones who had real dollars or bonds could buy in those special shops whatever they wanted. But those who had neither dollars nor bonds couldn't buy there anything, because they couldn't buy dollars or bonds in the first place. They had to seek help on the black market. The best illustration for this craziness is a Polish movie from 1990 called The Harlem Wizard, about an Afro-American basketball player called Abraham Lincoln. Wow, how original. So, Abraham is hired by a Polish basketball club and has to face the communist reality in Poland. The scene begins when Abraham is tired of bigos, a traditional Polish dish, sauerkraut and meat stew, and wants to buy some good food in Pewex. A hard currency shop.
Dzień dobry. Poproszę herbatę cytrynową, sok pomarańczowy, jeszcze jeden, orzeszki, czekoladę i szynkę. Ile płacę? Nie trzeba? Dziękuję. Nie złotówki, tylko dolary. Idź do banku.
For dollars, please.
Chciałbym to wymienić na dolary.
Złoty for dollars?
Złotówki na dolary? Nie.
Dollars for
A dolary na
dollars?
złotówki? Tak.
Zlotys for
Złotówki na
dollars?
dolary? Nie.
No. Not done over.
Change money?
Wymiana pieniędzy?
Zlotys for
Złotówki na dolary? Dobra.
$1.
$1.
Me, black
Ja, czarny rynek. $1, 2000 zł. Jeden bon.
Okay? What is a bond?
Co to jest bon?
Me, black
Ja, czarny rynek.
bank.
Bank.
Złoty for
Złotówki na dolary? Nie. Dolary na złotówki? Tak. Złotówki na bony? Nie. Bony na złotówki? Tak.
dollar for
Dolary na bony? Tak. Bony na dolary? Nie.
Okay? Me, black
Ja, czarny rynek.
Złoty for
Złotówki na dolary? Tak. Złotówki na bony? Tak.
No. What is
Co to jest bon?
Pewex.
Pewex.
Bond.
Bon. Polski dolar.
The black market guy is Cinkciarz, a Polish moniker from the beginning of the phrase change money, Cinkciarz. And the sad reason why Cinkciarz was permitted to operate, sell and buy currencies in a state that put basically every tiny capitalist in prison under accusation of a market speculation is because Cinkciarz, or plural Cinkciarze, besides selling or buying currencies, were snitching for the secret police. They were reporting on foreign tourists, diplomats in hotels. They were basically spies. Hell, head of mentioned Pewex shop chain was Marian Zacharski, a spy sentenced to death by Americans for stealing US military secrets, but finally exchanged for their spy on the famous Bridge of Spies. That also says something about the communists, right? So, Cinkciarz, currencies, Poland, doesn't that sound familiar today in the great capitalist USA? This is the third installment of John Wick, and what do we see there? Are bonds, strange-looking paper bills that look like they fell out of Monopoly game box, still in use? Well, for example, in communist Cuba they still use two currencies. One for tourists, called Cuban convertible peso, which is 1-to-1 with US dollar, and one for citizens, Cuban peso, and one Cuban peso is roughly only 4 American cents. Cuba, of course, also uses those hard currency shops, even though the country had plans to make it one Cuban currency in 2020. Dear comrades, that is communism for you. Soviets even built the Berlin Wall, officially stating that it was to stop the masses of Westerners from running to the eastern side, allured by the wonders of the communism. Not to stop people from running from the communist heaven. Despite the fact that most of the world got rid of communism, some people still have sentiment for it. Funny thing is that more sentimental are those folks who never really experienced it. Those who actually did would never return to it. But it's a crazy world we lived and live in. Thank you for watching, and please be a good comrade and subscribe for our cause. До свидания!